What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a very special edition of the Tello Talk podcast today. And the reason I say it is a very special edition is today marks the 1 year since I first recorded my very first podcast. It may have not have been uploaded that day, but that was the first time I've ever started this podcast. And we've got two things to talk about today. Not only the Super Bowl, as that is coming up within the next couple of days on Sunday, but more importantly, looking back on the Tello Talk podcast and what's happened so long in this year. And to start off, I'm going to say I appreciate everyone that has been with me through this ride so far, throughout the first year, and it's only up from here. It's only up from here. You know, about 100 all-time downloads in the first year, which I really, really appreciate here on for Spotify and Apple listeners. And then as for YouTube, we've had a good amount of viewerships as well when it comes to YouTube, especially with my very first episode that was published on the 13th, but was recorded on the 9th with 96 views alone. And just really thankful for everybody who supported me throughout this first year. And there's many more years to come and many more popularity boosts to come. And I'm happy that I started this, and I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that everybody who watches and listens is willing to listen to me every week, a part of their life. But as I finish with that, we're gonna get into it. Today's episode number 24. As you might be asking, oh, this is a whole year. It should be episode 52. I had a lot of breaks I had made during last year, and for year two, I think my goal is to make sure I've got one a week. I want to, at the end of the next year, at this time next year, I want to be able to end up and have, this is episode 24, I want to be able to be at episode 76 by the end of next year, next February 9th. So we'll push for that, obviously. We're going to get into our main topics for today, which is the Super Bowl, which is on Sunday. Wow, it's so close. We've got one more game left in the NFL season. It's almost a little upsetting to think about. We're going to have to wait another half a year just for football again. And especially with college being done a month before, and now this is up. It's been a crazy year, and especially for me, who's a Saints fan, it was not a very good year to watch. I didn't have a very great time watching this year. However, I did have a fun time watching the NFL. But we've got our two number one seeds in the Super Bowl, our two best record teams in the league, in the Chiefs and the Eagles, in Super Bowl 57 down in Glendale, Arizona, playing at State Farm Stadium, home of the Cardinals, for that Super Bowl opportunity. And the Kansas City Chiefs last won it in 2020. Yes, 2020, and the Eagles won it 2 years prior to that. So both these teams, generally more recent champions, looking for another ring this year, and obviously one of them's gonna win it. But we've got two very solid teams. The Eagles and the Chiefs, when you look at it, Eagles got the best run game in the league. Chiefs got the best passing game and total offense in the league. This game, when you look at it, should be a shootout. But there's some good defenses in this game. The Eagles have a phenomenal defense, in my opinion. Phenomenal defense. I mean, their defense is one of a kind. And a team with 4 pass rushers with 10-plus sacks on the year could be a little concerning if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. But I don't know. I'm not going to say that the Chiefs line's going to struggle. I think that Hassan Reddick and company will make some noise. They're going to cause some trouble for Kansas City. This game, I think, however, does rely on the secondaries, in my opinion. I mean, what does Mahomes do best? He makes play, finds his guys down the field. He makes the plays, finds his guys down the field. I think that he is going to have to. They're going to have both teams are going to have to stop these wide receiver cores and tight ends because you look at the Eagles, they've got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. Even if you want to count him, Zach Pascal. You've got all these people. And then for the Chiefs as well, you've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who had a phenomenal AFC Championship. You have Mecole Hardman, who's always a speedster. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's somebody that I really enjoy watching. And then obviously the best tight end in the league with Travis Kelce, who you have to put a corner on him, but he's going to get out-bully that corner. So really, he's a safety matchup. However, I think James Bradbury is going to be the guy covering Travis Kelce most of that time. So I think it's going to come down to secondary. Is that young Kansas City secondary going to be able to stop the Eagles, or is that that hardened pass defense of the Eagles going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes? And in my opinion, I think the Eagles will do a better job with coverage. But I think the defensive line for the Chiefs will do their best to stop the run game of the Eagles. I mean, you've got the second best running quarterback behind Lamar, and then the best rushing offense. I've already said. Don't be surprised if Hurts and Sanders have over 3 touchdowns combined. Because I'm gonna be honest, I'll say it right now, old talking Super Bowl and whatnot. I have the Chiefs losing this game. I have the Eagles winning this game. I won't say by how much so far, but when I go and watch the Eagles, yes, you can say they had a easy road to the Super Bowl. When you watch the Eagles do what they did against the Giants, who was coming off of a victory against the Vikings, riding high, a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe an upset happens. Maybe the Giants upset the Eagles. They win this whole thing. But that's where you got to look at it and be like, but what if that's where the people looked at it. What if the Eagles are coming off their bye week and the Eagles are doing all great? And that's what happened is the Eagles came off their bye week and absolutely clobbered this Giants team. And then they did the same thing to the Niners, granted that Brock Purdy got hurt. They have proved so many people wrong already in this playoff, I think. Because a lot of people, as I said, thought, the Giants are going to upset this team probably. They could upset this team. The Giants could be in the NFC Championship. Just because this team's the 1 seed, they're not looking too hot. Well, guess what? To me, they're looking fantastic and they're looking incredible. I only picked them to beat the Giants by 2 in the divisional round. They made me look stupid. I only picked them to beat the Niners by 4. Do I still think they would have beaten the Niners if they were fully healthy? Yes. But they made me look like a fool. And I'm not going to let them make me look like a fool again. So I will be picking the Eagles to win this game, and I'm going to say my score is 38-34 because I think that the Eagles will succeed 90% of the time when they go a scoring drive. Hence the reason why I've got them kicking 1 field goal, 5 touchdowns, and I think at least 3 of them will be on the ground. I don't see Sanders and Hurts not going with at least 2, I would have to say. They're going to have to get 2. And with that, really, this where I'm coming from with this is just the way that Hurts and Sanders and Gainwell, just the whole rushing game in the playoffs against the great Niners defense, who was probably worn down for how many possessions they were on the field, just bullied them. I know yardage wise, yes, they held the Eagles to like the least amount of yards this entire season when Jalen Hurts is playing. But they just looked like they were just tired, and the Eagles just brought it to them multiple times. I just see if the Niners can't stop that run game, I don't see any other team doing it because the Niners have that good of a run game. I mean, run game stoppage. But as for the Chiefs, they've had close games. Both their games have been very close games. And both their games could have been the other way around. I think the Jags could have easily won that game against Kansas City in the divisional, and then the Bengals, a lot of controversy about that. Everybody getting mad about that. But that could have been a Bengals victory. We could be seeing Bengals win this in this Super Bowl. But I just don't. You got to give the Chiefs their credit. You got to give the credit where credit is due. They have great coaching, great players, and their rookie. They had a full rookie defensive backcourt after Snead went out last week or 2 weeks ago, and they went out and they performed against the best wide receiver trio in the league, in my opinion. The one of the top 5 wide receiver ones, and then the second best wide receiver 2 in the league. And they went out there and they played great defense in the second half, caused a very crucial interception, and then obviously the Joseph Asai push out of bounds, causing the unnecessary roughness to the 15 yards. Harrison Butker kicking the field goal to send them to Phoenix. That is where I give them their credit. Their defense stepped up, but I don't see their defense stepping up again against this Eagles team. I don't think either of these teams have seen a team like each other this entire season. So they're going to bring it to each other, and both teams are going to feel that at first, be like, wow, this is a team that's going to attack us, and this is a team that is attacking us, coming at us fast, and we need to realize, this is not no normal game. This is not no Jacksonville. This is New York Giants. This is the Eagles and the Chiefs we are talking about here. And both of these teams have to understand that both these teams, obviously, as that announcer, the dumb reporter, no offense to that guy, but dumb reporter that told Nick Sirianni, is this a must-win game? Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a must-win game, obviously. It's a must-win game. Both teams are going to say, hey, this is do or die here. If we lose, we're going to be known as a team that lost the Super Bowl last year. And you don't want to be that team coming into the next season with a bunch of need for revenge. You want to be that team coming into the next season with the Super Bowl trophy. You want to be that team that everybody wants to beat now because you are the former champions and you are the reigning NFL champions. And that's where I think the Eagles will win this game. I feel like they'll be more prepared. They're more battle hardened for this. Jalen Hurts 16-1 as a starter this season. I don't see him going to 16-2. Every single win they have is with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. There are 2 times that Gardner Minshew played this season. They lost. They lost both times. And that was to Dallas, in New Orleans, in Philly. No offense to New Orleans because I love them, but even if Gardner Minshew is playing, Philly should win that game because Philly has the best overall team in the NFL. And now, with the fact that Jalen Hurts has been looking healthy these past 2 games, they're going to come out strong against Kansas City, and they're going to finish strong. I do think, though, Kansas City will have the lead at halftime. I just think the second half will switch it around. The Eagles are going to win this game. And that's really all I have about the Super Bowl. For the rest of this, it's a little bit shorter, as I said, this episode. Probably around the 20-ish something mark. If what we're going to do today is I want to take a trip back on memory lane, We had a lot of stuff happen within this first year. And then also basketball podcast, first one ever, will be coming out soon due to the new trade deadlines. Kyrie Irving to the Mavericks, D'Lo to the Lakers, Russ is on the Jazz, and most importantly, Kevin Durant's a freaking son. So we're got a lot of stuff going on in the next couple of days, but I just want to say February 7th, 2022 was the day that I uploaded to my Instagram, Tello Talk Sports, announcing that the podcast would become a thing. And in February 9th, 2022 was the first day that I recorded a podcast. Today is February 9th, 2023, as I've said. Excuse me. And I just kind of want to go back and explore what was said in this first episode, because my friend Cam and I, who was on that episode, who's been on a lot of episodes since, such as being on my top 25. He's probably been on what 15 of these episodes, 15 of these 23, and he's been my biggest supporter on it besides my parents. So I want to say, first of all, shout out to Cameron. I appreciate you a ton, man, for everything you've done for me in this whole year, and all the support you've given me, and all the stuff that you helped me with, and always talking sports with me so we can chat it up, and so I know what I'm talking about before the 20 minutes before we press record, talking about what we're going to go through, how we're going to go through it, what his opinions are, so we know each other's opinions going into it, so we know how to bounce off of each other's ideas. Everything I think that he has done so far for my account, for my podcasting, it's almost not only helped me start up this whole career that I want to go down, in this whole path I want to go down, but he's also helped boost it. And I just appreciate it a ton, man. And I hope he knows that what he does for me, what he does and helps me with is just, it means a lot to me. So I really appreciate that. Cam, I hope you're listening to this part. I really appreciate you, man, for everything you've done. However, we're going to talk about what has gone on in these episodes. My biggest thing is last year's episode was called Super Bowl Sunday, Head Coaching Jobs, and Rebuild or Retool. So what I will be doing right now is going back, looking at who I thought needed to be rebuilt, retooled, and I'll give you my opinions on this, all right? And our head coaching picks. Cam and I did our head coaching job picks, our number one favorite head coaching picks. And you know what I said? Brian Daboll was my favorite head coach pick. You know, the former Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. He helped build Josh Allen into who he was today. He had career low turnover rates. As soon as Daboll goes to the Giants, Daniel Jones has career low turnover rates, a great season, and then Josh Allen, coincidentally, has his highest turnover rate since his rookie season. If that doesn't say anything about Brian Daboll as a coach, I don't think you're watching the right NFL. And that is something I want to point out. I was a whole year ago, I said Daboll is going to be that coach for the Giants. And would you look at that? He has turned them around. They won a playoff series. They won a playoff game this year. And he's most likely going to win Coach of the Year. So when you look at it that way, that's something that I like to be able to point out and say, hey, I called this. I said he was going to be a good coach. And that's something that I love to be able to point out and say, hey, this dude was who I thought was the truth for this Giants squad. He's going to be able to unleash Saquon Barkley, unleash Daniel Jones' potential. And what do you do? Daniel Jones is going to get a contract extension. Saquon Barkley looked like an absolute monster this season. And Daboll's going to be their coach for a while, I believe. I truly think. And so now we're going to go into Cam's head coaching jobs. Head coaching pick was Mike McDaniel for the Miami Dolphins. Yes, I think that Cameron said that due to the fact that he's a Niners guy. McDaniel was a Niners guy. And I think McDaniel did a good job for what he had to deal with. I mean, he had a lot of stuff dealing with Tua's injury, his 3 concussions, trading all around. They look like a very solid team when they're healthy, but I just don't think they stayed healthy. If they stay healthy, they'll be okay. But I think what Cam brought up here is the fact that they utilize their double receivers. Obviously, they didn't have Tyreek at this point, so we didn't know Tyreek was going to be a Dolphin. But they utilized Jalen Waddle correctly. And that's, I think, another thing that we hit on last year is McDaniel could be a good coach. However, he needs to learn to call his plays in time, because that cost him a ton, even when he had his third-string quarterback, Skylar Thompson, in. So, but we'll go on to the rebuild or retool. And here's my favorite segment that I want to talk about because one of the teams playing Sunday is one of my biggest things that I will ever brag about. I know I hate bragging, but I always brag about it. I always say, I was the guy. I was a guy who said a year ago the Eagles need a couple more pieces and they're there. They didn't have a very good record against teams over 500 last year, but they had the roster. They had the roster. I mean, they made the playoffs. They got kind of embarrassed by Tampa, but they made the playoffs. They were there. They understood what it's like to be in the playoffs. They put their team around. They had picking up AJ Brown was huge. They picked up some free agents, and all of a sudden they were winning games. They couldn't get stopped. They were 10-1, I believe, in games with teams above 500 record. And I said they needed to be retooled, not rebuilt. And what did they do? They retooled, and look at that. They are now in the Super Bowl. They are playing for the Lombardi on Sunday. If you, and not to toot my own horn, but that's something that makes me think of wow. It kind of surprises me how I guessed that, and kind of makes me proud, to know that I know what I'm talking about. And I hate being that guy, but I've gone through a bunch of episodes and a lot of things that I've said before. They happened. They happened this year, and this one with the Eagles is just a big one for me. It's just the fact that I said the Eagles need a couple more pieces they can contend. And what are they doing now? They're in the Super Bowl and my Super Bowl pick. Another thing I will say is the one I got wrong was the Saints. I said the Saints needed a retool. They weren't in need for a rebuild. As a Saints fan, after last season, we need a rebuild. Jameis Winston was not who we thought he was last year. Who we thought last year Jameis was this year, he was not that guy. And then obviously the rumors with Derek Carr probably going to the Saints. I just don't know how to feel about it. And the Saints, they definitely want to still contend. They don't think it's time to rebuild. They think it's time to retool. But as a Saints fan who's watched this team, and a lot of people who are Saints fans would agree, this team needs to go into rebuild mode. This team needs to shut it all down this next year, because especially with having the 29th pick in the draft now from the San Francisco 49ers, I don't see them getting any impact players other than maybe Luke Musgrave, the tight end from Oregon State, or maybe if Dalton Kincaid drops that low, maybe him or Darnell Washington. I see the Saints going tight end, maybe wide receiver, and a guy like Josh Downs at 29. I just don't see them going anywhere else. I would love to see if Luke Van Ness from Iowa could drop that low, but I don't think he'll drop that low. I think he'll go higher than that. But that's where I kind of was wrong about. I said the Saints needed that. They needed to be rebuilt. They need to break it down. Next year, Caleb Williams in the draft, Drake May in the draft, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix. There's so many good quarterbacks in the draft class, in the next year's draft class, that if I were the Saints, no offense, but the Indianapolis Colts tanked. They went 10-6 and then 2-14 the next year. Got Andy Dalton. We went 7-10 this last season, and if they were smart, they'd tank it this year and go get yourself your franchise guy in Caleb Williams, because when Sean Payton, who loves Sean Payton, I'll have to talk about that in a second, about him especially. When he is comparing Caleb Williams' play style to Patrick Mahomes, and after what Mahomes said, and he said about Mahomes in 2017, Sean Payton was very high on Mahomes. He wanted him Mahomes. He was going to pick him if Mahomes didn't get drafted number 10 by the Chiefs. Now, I love Marshawn Lattimore, who was picked number 11, but I would take him. I love him. Like, love him to death. He's my favorite player on the Saints. If I had a chance that pick between Marshawn Lattimore and Patrick Mahomes, I'm sorry, you can leave. Lattimore, the door is that way. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. He's easily the best player in football, and that's really something that would want, something I would love. Unfortunately, don't have it. But that's okay. I'm not gonna cry about it. I'll be okay. But that's just how it is. The Saints need to get Caleb Williams. That's all I gotta think. And for the next guy that I need to talk about, team, sorry, is the good old Denver Broncos. We thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers at this point, and if they got Aaron Rodgers, I said retool. We said retool if they get a good quarterback. They got a good quarterback, and they still sucked. They need a rebuild. That's what they need to do, and I think that's what they will do. But biggest one is the Dolphins. I said the Dolphins need a retool. Obviously, they got their guy and Bradley Chubb on defense, and they've got Tyreek Hill on offense. I think they did a good job in their retool situation, quote unquote retool situation. It's just a problem with injuries. They got to stay healthy. They got to stay healthy. And that's really all I wanted to recap on last year. And then I'm gonna actually talk about a new head coach hiring with Sean Payton and D'Amico Ryans. I think D'Amico Ryans did the right thing in going with Houston. If I am a guy like D'Amico Ryans, you go with the Texans because the Texans are a struggling team. They're a bad team. They don't really got that. They're young. They don't have all those building blocks that other teams would like to have, such as the Broncos that do have. And if you're D'Amico Ryans in this case scenario, if you join Denver, if you join him, you're not going to do as well. If you don't do as well with that Denver roster, you could be screwed and could pull Nathaniel Hackett, have a bad season. They're going to be like, oh, we have all of our assets for you. You just didn't perform. We're going to get rid of you, fire you after the first year. But they're not going to do that in Houston. They're going to do that in Denver. But now since Denver goes with Sean Payton, Payton can just say, you're not going to fire Sean Payton in a year. If Payton doesn't like Russell Wilson, he's just going to say that. And they're just going to float him out of there. They're just going to float him out of there. They'll flow him out of there, and then all of a sudden they'll get a new quarterback because he's Sean Payton. He's the quarterback master. He had Drew Brees for 15 years. He made Jameis Winston look good last year. Led them to 5-2 last year before he got hurt. That's what's gonna happen, But so with D'Amico Ryans being a Texan coach, he doesn't have to worry about all that pressure, and D'Amico doesn't have to worry about all that junk and all that trash that's being said. He's got a team that is in rebuild now mode, and he can build with young pieces, especially if he gets a guy like Bryce Young, second overall, who I think will be their draft pick. So D'Amico Ryans, great idea going to Houston, not wanting to be a Denver coach. But as for Sean Payton, great hire. I'd say that was a win-win opportunity for the Broncos and Saints. The Saints got themselves a first and a second for a coach, but the Broncos got their coach of the future if Payton stays for a decent amount of time. That's my head coach beliefs. And then Steve Wilks was now hired as the Niners defensive coordinator, which I honestly think is a better hire than a lot of other hires, especially head coach hires, such as the Frank Reich head coach hiring by the Panthers. Great hire. I mean, Steve Wilks, in my opinion, should have been the Panthers head coach. I mean, the locker room is behind him. Obviously, there's the rule you never hire the interim head coach. Everybody thinks that. But Steve Wilks, he's a good coach, and the Niners picked the right guy for that vacant spot. And now I think the Niners defense won't take a single step back because Steve Wilks is a good coach and he's a defensive guy. And that's something that I just have an input on that, But that's going to be all for my coaching aspect today. That actually will be it for today. Just a reminder, Super Bowl 38-34, Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm excited for year 2 of Tello Talk, and I'm excited for everything to happen this year and see where this goes again. After the first year, see how it goes second year, and everything's going great so far, and I appreciate all the support. I'll have more consistent content coming out, especially with this football ending. I hate, but you love to see the NBA where it's at and the MLB coming up soon. You know me, I love it. Love baseball. Love the MLB. I can't wait to speak on more news on that. You'll be getting a preseason podcast for the MLB as well, and that's going to be it for me today. Um, so everybody tune in to the Super Bowl on Sunday. It's going to be a good one. Go Birds, even though I'm not even an Eagles fan. And thank you for the first 365 days of my content and my podcasts. That is our podcast. You guys make it happen. And me being able to record these and have people listen to them is the reason why I do these, is the fact that people care and people notice, and I appreciate it every day. Everyone who's been my supporter, everyone who tells me, "Hey, I watched your thing, man. It's great. It was great. I really agree with a lot of things. You guys mean a ton to me, and I hope that we can build this brand together." But that's gonna be it for me. And I hope y'all enjoyed listening to today, and we'll be back soon with some NBA trade talk. That's gonna be it for me. Peace.